Hey, this is Harry Joyner, the e-commerce recruiter, and I'm next on the RecTech podcast.
Welcome to RecTech, the podcast where recruiting and technology intersect. Each month, you'll hear from vendors shaping the recruiting world, along with recruiters who'll tell you how they use technology to hire talent. Now, here's your host, the mad scientist of online recruiting, Chris Russell.
That's right, it's time for RecTech. The mission of this podcast is to help employers and recruiters connect with more candidates through technology-inspired conversations. If you listen, you'll hear both recruiters and HR tech vendors talk about how they use tech to find talent. All right, this episode of RecTech is sponsored by Jobs in the US. If your company needs to hire more local talent, jobsintheus.com lets you post jobs for free on their national job search engine. They also operate 51 local state sites for every state in the country, including Washington, D.C. Online since 1999, the job boards they power will help you connect with more local candidates. Learn more again at jobsintheus.com. And by the way, listeners, if you like this podcast, you'll probably like what I listen to, which is shows like the Chad and Cheese podcast. A couple of my recruiting tech industry friends, Joel and Chad, started this crazy podcast you got to check out. The snark is thick, the intel is good, and they don't pull any punches. Check it out at chadcheese.com. That's chadcheese.com. All right. Harry Joyner is a third-party recruiter who specializes in placing e-commerce executives, and I invited him on the show because he does a great job of branding himself in the recruiting world via his website. And let me read to you what he said on LinkedIn recently, because I think it's a great way of showcasing kind of what Harry's mentality is as far as recruiting goes. He writes, "For a long time, I regarded voicemails as mini radio ads, an opportunity to leave a targeted ad and drive a click to my site. That's why I paid so much to acquire the best generic.com domains I could buy. I'd always encourage first-time listeners to Google e-commerce jobs, or at a minimum, they would hear my URL, ecommercejobs.com, and think, this guy must be legit. I'll go have a look. So that only reinforced my credibility with web-only job seekers who Google the term e-commerce jobs and would see me atop the Google search result pages for that term." Harry, welcome to RecTech.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
So that's what you just wrote on LinkedIn there, which I happened to see the other day and print out. To me, is an excellent way of recruiting. So where did that mindset come from?
You know, it comes from being self-employed for 13 years. So I would say that I never wanted to be a recruiter. And I think being the best recruiter is a lot like being the tallest midget. Recruiters are like real estate agents. I think the law of 80-20 or even 90-10 sort of applies in this space, where you probably have 10% of the recruiters making 90% of the money. I have no evidence to back that up. I have no way of knowing if that's true or not. But recruiting seems to be sort of a winner-take-all business. And I got into this space, and I didn't have the money to really spend a lot of money building a brand. You know, like, for instance, the word monster by itself is just, it doesn't mean job board or whatever. It became synonymous with job board in the late 90s and early 2000s, thanks to tens of millions of dollars of brand advertising on the part of Monster. And I didn't have that, right? So my whole thing was that I had to cut through the clutter. There were a gazillion recruiters out there. I had to figure out what my differentiation was, you know, sort of what my business was about and who my business was for and what my unique selling proposition was. So why would my slam dunk candidate or slam dunk client choose to do business with me versus any option available to them, including doing nothing? And so every single thing I did, every single digital asset I acquired, had to reinforce that. And I just read a bunch of books that sort of supported the build out of that mentality. So I'm a big Dan Kennedy fan. I'm a big Jay Abraham fan. I'm a big Gary Halbert fan. I read a lot of John Carlton and Gary Bencivenga, whatever. These are all people that your listeners, they probably don't know, but they've been instrumental in helping me figure out how to market my business in a way that helps the candidate and client feel better about themselves because of their relationship with me.
So what came first? Did you buy the domains first, then get into recruiting, or did you start recruiting first?
I started recruiting first. So I was a biz dev consultant with a little business called Reliable Growth back in the early 2000s.
Okay.
And I had a newsletter called Proven Ways to Get New Customers. It was like an e-newsletter, and I built the list up to about 500 people or whatever, and I really enjoyed producing it. And at a certain point, my business was struggling, and I had to go get a more conventional job, and the more conventional job that I found was recruiting. And when I got into the recruiting business, I realized that because of the nature of the business of selling, basically you're in business for yourself. And so what I did was I repurposed Proven Ways to Get New Customers as posts of a weblog. So I started a blog called Proven Ways to Get New Customers, and I was a fan of Seth Godin, the marketing guru who's been blogging for eons, and Seth is just a star. It's so inspirational. And so I noticed that Seth's blog was on TypePad. I didn't really know what that was, but his URL was sethgodin.typepad.com. And I thought, well, if it's good enough for Seth Godin, it's good enough for me. So I'll go to TypePad, whatever that is, and I'll start a blog. And so I put a bunch of my blog postings for a bunch of articles from Proven Ways to Get New Customers up there. And the name of the blog was Proven Ways to Get New Customers at harryjoiner.typepad.com. And one of the really cool things about what I do is that I'm on the phone with America's best online retail executives all day, every day. It's like being a sports agent or something. And it's been like this for years, like 13 years. I've been an online retail recruiter. Now everybody's an online retail recruiter. I've been doing this with same thing, all day, every day for, however many hours a day since 2004. And one day I was on the phone with a lady named So-Young Park with A&E Television. She ran A&E's e-commerce business in Stamford, Connecticut. And one of the things that I would always do is when I was wrapping up a conversation with a candidate, they were always VPs of e-commerce or directors of e-commerce. I would always ask the question, if you were me and you were a recruiter trying to grow a business, what would you do to better market yourself online? And then I would shut up and take notes.
Right.
And the thing is, like, if you're asking somebody like Steve Kahn, SVP of e-commerce for Victoria's Secret, or Bob Myers of QVC, or So-Young Park of A&E Television for online retailer advice or online marketing advice, that's like having Ted Williams back clean up for the company softball team. I mean, I was getting unbelievable advice from these people. And so one day, I asked So-Young the question, and she said, well, do you have a blog? I'm like, yeah, I got a blog. I'm so glad you asked. So, well, what's your blog? And I took her Proven Ways to Get New Customers and, harryjoiner.typepad.com. And she said, well, that's not a very keyword-rich domain, and you're never going to get traction with this. And she explained how search engines work. This was 2005.
Okay.
2005, right? And we were talking, and she said, here's the way it works, right? So what do you do for a living? Well, I'm a marketing headhunter. She's like, so if I met you at a cocktail party and I said, what do you do for a living? You'd say you're a marketing headhunter. I'd be like, yeah. And she goes, okay, right there. Type that into a browser bar, marketingheadhunter.com, and see what happens. So I type it into a browser bar, and I go to a place called Buy Domains, and the domain is available for $2,000. And I'm like, yeah, okay, so it says here it's available for $2,000. What do you want me to do? And she said, well, buy it. I'm like, I'm not going to pay $2,000 for this domain, Marketing Headhunter. She's like, well, why not? You just told me that's what you do for a living. I'm like, yeah, but it's not very snappy. It's not very sexy. She's like, no, dude, here's the deal, right? If you're online at marketingheadhunter.com and you tell everybody you're a marketing headhunter and everybody knows you as the marketing headhunter, right? When people backlink to your site, they're going to backlink to you as marketing headhunter. And when people are looking for a marketing headhunter online, right, they Google marketing headhunter, and your site is the nexus of all things marketing headhunter on the internet. And I'm like, are you sure? She's like, yeah, I'm sure. That's how it works. So I'm like, but I don't want to pay $2,000 for this thing. That's a ripoff. I would never pay that. And she's like, well, okay, what are you doing to market your business now? Well, I'm buying a quarter-page ad in Internet Retailer magazine. Well, how much is that? Well, it's $500 a month. Okay, so pull your ad for 4 months, and you've got this, and it's an asset that you can sell one day. What's your average order value? What do you mean average order value? Well, like when you close a search, what do you make? Well, I make 20% of the candidate's first-year base salary. Yeah. And what last year, how much was your average invoice? $22,000. She was like, "You're an idiot. You're an idiot. Why wouldn't you pay that? You know, $2,000, it's the loss in the rounding probably of your quarterly tax liability. Give me a break." So I'm being long-winded here, but I bought the domain, and she was exactly right. And what was interesting about it was that I bought that domain, and I immediately shot to the top of the search results for Marketing Headhunter, because it wasn't that competitive of a search result, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there weren't that many Marketing Headhunters, but the great thing was it was very targeted traffic. So if somebody was looking for a Marketing Headhunter, by God, that's what they wanted. So I was probably getting 500 searches a month, but there was like a 0% bounce rate on my site. It was very, very targeted traffic, very specific stuff. Nobody Googles Marketing Headhunter unless that's what they're looking for.
Right.
And about, 10 weeks after converting to Marketing Headhunter, I get a call from a lady named Sarah Needleman. "Hi, this is Sarah Needleman. I'm with Dow Jones." "Oh, hi, Sarah Needleman. What can I do for you?" "Well, I was on your site, and I'm looking for a Marketing Headhunter, and I called this number, and are you a Marketing Headhunter?" "Well, yes, I am." I'm thinking, what do you need? You need a marketing director or whatever. And she goes, "Well, I'm a writer for the Wall Street Journal, and I'm writing an article on marketing careers, and I need a quote from a Marketing Headhunter. Are you a Marketing Headhunter?" It's amazing, right? So from that, comes the story of the little drawing that's been on my site for 10 years. I've been in the Wall Street Journal, 3 or 4 times, whatever. It's like I always say, I'm not curing cancer down here. This is not rocket science. But the cool thing, it's like Warren Buffett says, if you've got a tiny circle of competence that's very sharply defined around the edges, that's better, because we now live in a winner-take-all society. So if you're the best oral surgeon in Los Angeles, or the best left-handed minor league shortstop, or the best Marketing Headhunter, you can make an interesting amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
And so what my advice to any of your listeners is, just pick one thing and do it, and just, brand the hell out of that one thing. Pay the freight for the domain, because it's worked great for me over the 13 years of doing this. I'm not sure that I would change anything about what I've done. I can't say that I had really any of the ideas that I've had. They all existed in books, or I just sought advice from really talented people, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I mean, I think of guys like you, Paul DeBettingis, who runs Minnesota Tech Recruiter. He has a blog, or guys like Tim Sackett too, where just putting out there on his own personal domain name, and just blogging and making a name for themselves. All right, so Harry, describe ecommercejobs.com itself. What do you use it for specifically, if you could?
Well, okay, so for all intents and purposes, it's a job board. To the uninitiated, I would say it looks like a job board. It walks like a job board. It quacks like a job board, but it's really a Trojan horse, and it's really a marketing machine, right? So the way it works is you've seen the TV show Dirty Jobs with Mike Rowe.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So there's a Mike Rowe of Dirty Jobs. I'm the Mike Rowe of e-commerce jobs. That's how I describe myself. And the decision, by the way, to describe myself as that is based on a book called Made to Stick. So I only describe myself like that because people will go, okay, I like Mike Rowe. Right? Okay, I like Harry Joyner. I don't know Harry Joyner, but he sounds like a nice guy. Okay, I got it. The Mike Rowe of e-commerce jobs. So what does that mean? Well, it means that at the end of the day, I'm basically a storyteller, right? And my job is to educate and inform and entertain with regard to the searches that I market. So rule number 1 is I like to take searches that can be closed on the back of a single story.
What do you mean by that?
It's my job basically, so it's basically my job to take that story to market. So I've built up an audience, and if you go to ecommercejobs.com and you read any of my postings, what you'll see is there's an essay there called Harry's Comments, and it's a very detailed essay, right, about the client's business. What's the business about, and who's the business for, and how big is the market opportunity, and what's in the technology stack, and who's on the team. And, basically it seeks to answer the question, how would my client do if they were a contestant on Shark Tank?
Right.
right? So would Mark Cuban invest his own money in my client's business? Because I figure if Mark Cuban wouldn't invest, then I really have no business being out, there selling an employment opportunity for them. Because here's the amazing sort of premise of what I do for a living. I talk on the phone to a candidate and I engage them. And at the end of a process, I never see anybody. This is as close as anybody ever gets to me. I'm not a retained recruiter. Nobody ever sees me. I never leave my house. I work from home. This is it. Right? So at the end of the hiring
You never meet with candidates?
Shit, no.
Wow. Okay.
Absolutely not. I don't mean, this is as close as intimate as I am with anybody. It's not an anxiety thing. It's just, I cover more ground with a telephone. I don't need to see the candidate, and I don't need to see the client either. People say, well, it's all about culture. Well, maybe it's all about culture, but the client is going to make their own decision whether or not somebody's a culture fit.
Right.
It's my job to make sure that the candidate can plug and play and drive value for the client and their business, from a technical standpoint. So that's what I do. The client will interview for culture. Right. So anyway, this is basically the deal. And at the end of this process, people will sell their house and move across the country and, change jobs and, interrupt and disrupt their entire existence to go, it's amazing that I ever close a single search. It's amazing that anybody ever closes a single search, And so the best way to close searches is it all basically starts with, in Hollywood, this is what they say, is that it all basically starts with the quality of the script. One of the things that I've learned about Hollywood, I'm an obsessive reader about Hollywood and the agency model out there, is that in Hollywood, the richest actors aren't the richest actors because they're the best actors, all right? They're the richest actors because they get the best scripts. So you take an actor like Jack Nicholson, and somehow or another we go back in time and we prevent Jack Nicholson from screaming at Tom Cruise, "You can't handle the truth."
I just saw that, by the way.
We significantly undercut his lifetime value as an actor. And it's the same way with e-commerce executives. It's the same way with marketing executives. So all of my candidates, they want to make sure that the economics of the client's business are favorable and that the role will be reputation enhancing for them personally. That the role will provide massive transformational value to them personally.
Right.
And so I won't take shitty searches. And there's lots of opportunities to take shitty searches, by the way. I don't know if I can say the word shitty on your show, but anyway,
no problem.
I just did. So you can edit that out. But there's 4 kinds of searches in the world, right? So there's bad jobs and good clients. There's good jobs and bad clients. There's bad clients and bad jobs. And then there's good jobs and great clients. That's it. And we're out there working very, very hard to make sure that we take searches with great clients and that these are good jobs where the underlying economics of the department or the business that the candidate will be working in are favorable and that the role will be reputation enhancing for them personally. So at the end of their involvement with that client, their fingerprints will be all over a particular success, because then we go place people elsewhere.
Yeah.
That's what we do. There's certain people in the business that we've placed 3 or 4 times.
How many searches do you turn down every month, Harry? Curious.
I would say we take probably, I don't know, anecdotally, it's about half of the deals that come our way. Mm-hmm. So getting back to why I write such a great job posting, the reason that I write great job postings is part of it is because millennial candidates these days typically won't pick up the phone and have a meaningful conversation with a recruiter until they know what the job is. So you got to put the sales pitch in the posting. Otherwise, that pitch ain't going to get pitched.
Yeah.
So that's number one. The second reason that we do it is that VPs of HR see our stuff and they go, wow, okay, so here's a recruiter who actually, I see the value add of this recruiter. So it turns out actually a well-written job posting is the best marketing you can do.
That's a great statement.
And it's content marketing too. So
yeah,
I'm comfortable saying this because I've said this on the Recruiting Animal show before, and recruiters just don't believe this. They think that this is just all smoke and mirrors, and they just think, well, this is crazy. Well, it's not crazy. So I'm going to throw it out there once again for your audience. And my guess is that most of the people who listen to this will shake their heads and go, this guy sounds like he's smoking something. And they just won't copy me.
Yeah. I mean, to me, this is not job postings, they're job stories. And they tell a story. I mean, how do you get all the information? Take us through some of that process in terms of how you actually write these things.
No.
No?
No, I'm not going to get into that. I have a process, and it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
Right? It's like a magic trick. So I will show you the dots, but I'm not going to connect the dots. But there's a whole process that I have, and there's a couple of little Van Halen Brown M&M clauses in my contract that, basically allow this to happen and whatever. I'm not going to really get into it, but at the end of the day, the client, trust me, is quite complicit in this whole process. And look, we've changed some things about how we operate, so some of the information we built a separate site now called nextgig.com. And for highly qualified candidates who sign an NDA, we'll let them into NextGig, and they can download a bunch of really proprietary, great information about a client and their business and the strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats facing the company and all that, so that by the time they actually sit down to interview for the role, it's like they have like this Charlie Rose-like conversation with the hiring manager, and it's a magic show. And our goal, by the way, this is a goal of ours. We state this as a goal of our business, is we want the hiring manager to actually get smarter about her own business vis-a-vis their interviews with our candidates. So all of our candidates come in with different ideas about how to solve for whatever problem that is keeping the hiring manager up at night. Mm-hmm. But it's an atomic throwdown of good stuff. By the time they get there, they're locked and loaded.
Okay, so you prep them pretty much all the way.
Oh, my God. They're way, way, way better than the internal HR team ever would, because all I know is marketing. So, I mean, I got an actual playbook with 3-wing notebooks and stuff. And, there's a whole process over here.
All right, so let's switch gears a little bit, Harry. We talked a lot about technology on this show. So let's talk about what you use out there. So first of all, what's your ATS? Can you tell us that?
Job Science.
Job Science, okay. How long have you been with them?
Too long.
Too long. Is that a good statement or a bad statement?
Pass.
Okay. What other tech tools are part of your everyday recruiting activities? These sourcing tools, other sites out there? Give us a sense of some of the things you might be using today.
How do I source? Hell if I know. But mostly people, they read a posting and they will text a posting to their friend, and it's very much a sort of a viralish sort of thing. So
so you must get a lot of referrals then as well, actually.
A lot.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot. We're paying LinkedIn, I don't know, $1,800 a month. I can't tell you when the last time I logged into LinkedIn was. I don't know, a year ago. I'm paying for it and I'm not even using it.
I think all that says, how much of the site itself has really done for you as far as lessening your reliance on all those other tools, LinkedIn, whatever it is, right? You've become basically your own referral machine the site has for you.
Yeah. So I want to be careful here, truly, if, for your listeners who've ever seen the TV show Entourage,
yep.
The Internet Retailer Top 500 is like Hollywood. And I'm like Ari. I'm not that smart. I'm damn sure not good looking. I'm not saying that. Truly, I think being the best recruiter is like being the tallest midget. I take no pride in the fact that I'm a really good recruiter. I take a lot of pride in the fact that I'm a good businessman and a good marketer. If I stopped recruiting next week, which, trust me, occurs to me constantly, I'd just go be a marketer.
Yep.
So Ari Gold on Entourage doesn't have a Rolodex necessarily. It's all up in his head. And I'm on the phone 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, 6 days a week sometimes. It's mostly 5. So like 30 hours a week, right? Do the math, times 50 weeks a year, times 13 years. Like my Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hour cutoff point was like 2013 or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of know where all the bodies are buried. So, and I'm not saying I know everybody, but I'm saying everybody that I know, they know everybody. They know all of the A players. There's the old joke in the recruiting business, A players know A players, B players know C players. That whole thing, it's like true. That's true. So when I take a search assignment, there's nothing normal about how I operate and how I take a search assignment. The way I download the information, there's nothing normal about it. And because I'm so well informed, I never said smart, I never said good looking, I said well informed. Because I'm so well informed and I ask really, really good questions about the client's business and the purpose and values and viewpoints and story and style of marketing and customer experience, et cetera, of their brand and what they're doing to, their CRM strategies are and how they're using paid, owned, and earned media to drive traffic, improve an average order value, improve a conversion rate. I mean, I've been doing this now for 13 years. It's a long time.
Yep.
So I don't want to say I don't need LinkedIn because that sounds arrogant.
Well, how about your other recruiters? You have other recruiters working for you too as well, right? So I'm sure they're using LinkedIn, I would imagine.
Yeah, I got a partner in the business named Alan Seibert, and Alan uses LinkedIn. But Alan's been with me for 7 years, and when I look at the number of deals Alan closed a lot of deals. I don't know that he's sourcing a lot of his candidates from LinkedIn. I mean, we've got a lot of resumes in our database already. And there's a whole reason why this is. I own 2 of the top 5 LinkedIn groups for e-commerce.
Oh, that's right. You have the groups too. I forgot about those.
Yeah. So like there's 20,000 people between those 2 LinkedIn groups. And I'm connected literally to about 16,000 people on LinkedIn. And there's a reason for that too, but I'm not connected to Lions or like other recruiters. I don't connect to other recruiters. I don't connect to HR people. I mean, this is strictly, I'm kind of rigid about that. So I will only connect with people that are, they're not there just to connect with me, but I'm connecting with other marketers.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would have to pay LinkedIn exactly to extract as much value out of LinkedIn as I'm extracting. I don't know if that makes any sense. I think I'm making my money on the free services that LinkedIn offers. But you got to go build a group, and it's all about organic growth on LinkedIn. Well, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean until they turn off groups, I guess. It's I'm always waiting for that shoe to fall.
Yeah, right.
That shoe to drop.
Right, until they turn off groups, right. And they could one day.
Yeah. If your listeners, if you're smart there, start a Facebook group because Facebook is putting a ton of resources into building those communities, and they're actually putting more help behind it for the group owners, things like that, to make better groups and build those groups over time. So I think Facebook is investing in groups, whereas LinkedIn may be eventually, cutting them away or whatever. But
I'm telling you, man, I'm suspect of anything and everything Silicon Valley, like these, Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Amazon, whatever, the FANG stocks, that whole like Silicon Valley mafia out there. I'm just, it's a giant bait and switch deal. I mean, what I've seen as an e-commerce recruiter, I'm not pontificating here. I'm just like commiserating, I guess, with your listeners, is that what I see is that Amazon is sucking the oxygen out of the e-commerce business, and LinkedIn is sucking the oxygen out of the recruiting business. And I'm online at e-commerce recruiter. So I will tell you that like my revenues are actually down this year. It's weird. I mean, don't cry for me. We're still making money and I'm not missing any meals. One look at me and you would know that, right? But the problem is that we do live in a winner-take-all society. What's going to be rough is that Facebook says they're all about community and connecting the world and all this other happy stuff. And yeah, they are. And then you're going to fall for that and you're going to end up paying for it. And you're going to end up teaching Facebook about your industry's social graph who knows who and who's connected to real A players and stuff. And this just makes the recruiting function ripe for being taken over by artificial intelligence.
Yeah, well,
I read a lot about it. You got to be really careful about building groups through Facebook. I'm probably going to build a group, just saying, using something like MemberPress. So if your listeners go to nextgig.com, that's an example of a membership site that I'm in the process of building.
Oh, cool.
So they can see that.
Awesome. We really appreciate the time today, Harry. Last question as we wrap this up. New recruiter, you're starting day one today, is your first day on the job. What's your advice to them?
Okay. So have some standards, right? Have some standards and know who you'll do business with, and be prepared to not do business with people who don't meet those standards. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
All right. So I have 3 things that I look for, right, in a search. So this goes back to having the best script. So the first thing I look for when a company calls and they want me to take their search is, are the underlying economics of the client's business favorable? Because in direct-to-consumer e-commerce, which is my thing, there's nothing more unforgiving than bad economics, right? So is the cost per lead too high, cost per sale too high? Is the product cost too high? Can't mark that up sufficiently to sell online, whatever, cost per click too high, whatever. Now understand something about whether or not they can actually make money online. Now, you may have a bunch of listeners who hear that and roll their eyes and go, how the hell are you supposed to learn all that? Well, you ask questions, right? So that's number 1. Are the underlying economics of the client's business favorable? Number 2, you have to know, will the role be reputation enhancing for your candidate? That's hugely important, man. Will the role be reputation enhancing for your candidate? Well, okay, that begs the question, who's your slam dunk candidate? So there are movie agents out there who deal with only dramatic actors or only comedic actors or only people who do whatever, to pick a specialty, gangster flicks or whatever, right? So again, the riches is in the niches. So pick some niche, whatever the niche is, right? And know something about who the A players are in that space and what do they fear and what keeps them up at night and what are their top 3 daily frustrations and what are their hopes and dreams career-wise. And then every search that comes your way, ask yourself, is this a product that I want to sell to the best and brightest people in the industry? Right? So I heard something that was kind of shocking to me, but it makes perfect sense. So there is an economist, God, and I forget the guy's name. Honestly, I wasn't going to mention this, but anyway, whatever. There's an economist now who's somehow derived that in any organization, more than 50% of the hard and soft economic value driven by that organization can be attributed to the square root of the number of employees. That's really interesting, right? So that tells me that if you have a company of 25 people, there's 5 people there who are calling the shots.
Right.
If you have 100 people in a company, there's 10 people there calling the shots. Your goal as a recruiter is to place people who are so unbelievable, right, that your fee will be lost in the incremental, in the rounding of the incremental value that they drive for your organization, right? So you have to know something about the underlying economics of the client's business, how they make money online, who they're selling to, what's the average order value, how many times per year the customer buys, et cetera, where that growth is going to come from, blah, blah, blah. You have to figure that out. That's really important. It'll make you a better salesperson too as a recruiter. It'll get you instant credibility because the A players in your industry, this is the kind of crap they think of. Right?
Yep.
So number 1, are the underlying economics favorable? Number 2, will the role be reputation enhancing for the candidate? And the third thing I look at is, would I want my own son or daughter to go work for the hiring manager? I stole that from Peter Drucker.
Oh yeah.
That's not mine. That's a Peter Druckerism. But I'll tell you that all of us guys, in particular, I think, we would all work for an asshole. I know I would. I would work for an asshole if it meant I got to put bread on the table, right? But if I ever saw somebody being an asshole to one of my kids, I would probably hit them. My standards are a lot higher in particular for my daughters. Maybe that's a dad thing. I make no apologies about that. Right.
Yep.
So anyway, those are the, things you want to think about when taking a search. And if you can get searches that, will meet your own personal standards, and you have good rigid standards, and you're not afraid to lay off a pitch that's outside of your strike zone, because you'll see lots of them,
yep,
then eventually you'll be known as a recruiter who gets good jobs, and you'll attract good candidates. And it's a process. It takes a while. Be prepared to plant yourself there.
Those are definitely words of wisdom, Harry. Again, Harry Joyner from ecommercejobs.com. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. And I guess that's it. Are we done?
We're done. That'll do it for this edition of the RecTech Podcast. And thanks again to our sponsor. And remember to check out jobsintheus.com for your local hiring needs. Follow me on Twitter at Chris Russell, or visit rectechmedia.com. You can find the audio and links for this show on our blog. Subscribe via iTunes, Google Play, or SoundCloud. Thanks for listening, everyone. See you next time.